Cubyz 0.3.0 just came out, and as always, it comes with a bunch of new blocks by me. What I'll be talking about today though is the rough and smooth variants of the stone blocks. Essentially how these came about is we wanted cobble variants of all the stones, because before only slate had a cobble, but I felt that some of the existing stones were already in a cobble state, so those stones got smooth variants instead. And we're calling them rough stones, so it's a little more open to interpretation what they have to look like. The smooth sandstone is a pretty flat texture, so I just started with some basic blobs, just filling out the canvas so I have something to work with. I start to dither it basically right away, because it's sand, so it should look rough. I also tried to include the horizontal lines that you see on the rough sandstone to try and tie them together a bit more. And once I had it looking good enough, I exported it and set it up as a block in Cubyz. I think it's very important to test your textures in game as soon as possible, because a texture can feel very different when it's on a block compared to just on your canvas. So I go into a desert and just kind of look at it, place a few blocks to see how it feels, and yeah, it's not a very complicated texture, so there it is. So the rough basalt is more of a cobblestone kind of texture, and with those I always start with a dark background color, then start drawing the individual rocks on top. I spend a lot of time tweaking the individual shapes so that everything feels balanced. There aren't any rocks that are perfectly lined up or one that's way too big compared to the other ones. So I shaded the rocks like they're cylinders, they have a bright top face, highlights along the edge, and then a shadow where the shadow would be, I guess. So now I'm starting to add in some roughness so it doesn't look so smooth and perfect, and then bring it into game. I'm looking at it and I still think it looks too smooth, so I go back and start to roughen it a bit more, and I break up some of the flat areas of color into individual clusters of color, and that's the first of many cobblestone kind of textures I had to do. Okay, with glacite, I really don't like how this texture came out. It's a combination of the approach I took with the smaller rocks, and also just the color palette is really weird to work with. That's the thing with long-term projects like Cubyz, where I have to work with a texture I did like 2 years ago, and I'm looking at it and I'm just like, what is going on here? It's not that it's a bad palette. I do like how it looks. I think it's interesting and unique, but it's like the highlights are really bright. There's just something about it, and a lot of it I think is just how I ended up shading it, and later I ended up tweaking the texture a lot, so I don't hate it as much now. With nimbusite, I want the rocks to be kind of angular, so I start just putting in some weird looking shapes and moving them back and forth until they fit together how I want, and that takes a while because I'm very picky about this. Then I shade them so they have some distinct facets, and I'm trying to capture the same look that the smooth nimbusite has. Then I'm just adding in some roughness, and that's kind of it. Voidstone went pretty quick. I had just redone the block set, all of the different textures, so it was pretty fresh in my memory. I wanted it to be very angular, almost crystal looking, and so they each have these very diagonal highlights. They're very sharp looking, and since this time I do want it to look smooth, I don't have to do much else. Since the Voidstone palette is just so dark, I have to keep zooming in and out so I can actually see what the colors are. But I mean, that's kind of the whole point, so yeah. My idea with Terracotta was for it to be kind of like sandstone with the horizontal lines, so I started on that. but got kind of distracted and ended up making a totally different texture. It has this kind of cracked look, and I really liked how it turned out, so I made it the new smooth terracotta texture. The old one was bad, so it all works out. Mostly it just looked too much like the clay texture, so now it looks very distinct, which is good. Anyways, then I actually started on the rough terracotta, where I went for these squarish shapes. I wanted it to be flatter looking, so I placed the highlights close to the top edge. And generally I shaded them the same way I would shade bricks, while also making sure it looked uneven enough to be rough looking. This is probably one of my favorite ones I did. It blends really nicely with the new smooth terracotta I just made, and I can imagine a lot of different ways you could use a block that looks like this. I should probably explain what pyrolyte is, because it's new to 0.3.0. Pyrolyte is the stone that appears in the new mantle cave layer, which I also made. It's your classic underworld, fiery hell death zone, filled with lava and magma and spikes. Pyrolyte is the other stone that got a new smooth variant. The original pyrolyte has these triangular rocks, so I wanted to make something with bigger, smoother triangles. I'm not totally happy with how it turned out. It's perfectly fine, but I might change this at some point. It didn't quite look how I wanted it to. Limestone is another pretty standard cobble texture. I don't have much to say about it. I will bet that this is one of the more useful cobbles, because it's got the nice warm color that the rest of the limestone palette has, and I'm sure it could fit in a lot of different builds. Limestone is another one with a weird old palette like glacite. I'd like to redo the smooth limestone at some point, but I should be doing new things instead of tweaking old textures. For marble, similar to nimbusite, I wanted some angular shapes. You get to see more thrilling rock-moving action here. Really though, I think it's important to take your time on tiling, since you can texture and shade it to be super duper pretty and nice, but if it tiles poorly, it's just gonna look weird and not gonna be as good as it could be otherwise. I was hoping to be able to capture the, marbled look that marble has, but I couldn't get it to work at the scale. It always just looked like a mess. I'm sure someone smarter than me could pull it off though. Ferroc is the very last one I did. I always put it off to the end because it's the weird one, and honestly I don't really know what's going on here. I just kinda made it in one sitting without thinking of it too hard. I think it looks cool, but Quantum wants something different, so I'll probably change it at some point. The idea is it's supposed to be like the individual stones stacked on top of each other or something like that. Kind of like sandstone, but more uneven looking, I guess. And that is all of them. I know I compressed all this footage down to be really short, because I didn't want the video too long, but this took a while. I hope you like them, I hope you enjoy building with them. It's always cool to see what people build with the blocks that I add, so if you build something, you should share it somewhere. Cubyz is free and open source, so if you'd like to help me do more cool stuff like this, you can support me on Ko-Fi. Or you can check out Quantum's Patreon so he can review my PRs faster. If you can't do money, just playing the game and spreading the word about Cubyz is always very appreciated. This is my first time doing a voiced video like this, so let me know how it turned out. I wasn't able to go too in depth with actual techniques and stuff, because I just had so much footage and a lot of them follow the same kind of approach, so I don't want to just repeat myself the whole video, so I'm curious to know what you think. If you enjoyed it and want to see more, let me know. If you thought it was terrible, also let me know.